I'd like to welcome to the stage Evelyn, Scott, and Michael. They're going to be talking, round of applause for sure. They're going to be talking about Chevron's cloud journey and transformation, and also I'll just say we'll probably reserve a bit of time at the end for questions. So if you hold your questions to the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Evelyn. Thanks, and go for it.
Thank you, Vas. Welcome everybody. Good morning. How's the conference so far? Exciting?
Yeah.
A lot of great content? Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to be in this conversation with these two great guys to share all the knowledge and the experience and the learnings that they have had. My name is Evelyn Padrino. I'm part of Microsoft Marketing, and I lead a team for Azure Customer Success. Scott?
Yeah, Scott Linn. I'm Chevron's head of FinOps. I've been at Chevron for 26 years. The last 9 years helping move us into the cloud computing space, and serving as our head of FinOps for the last 5 years.
And I'm Michael Flanakin. I'm on the cost management team at Microsoft, just really trying to bring FinOps into everything that we do, and kind of working with people across the company just to really drive that FinOps vision and everything that we can do to enable partners and customers and whatnot out there. So.
Thank you both. So we're going to start with a quick intro, warming up, see how was your journey, Chevron's journey, in this multi-cloud, multi-year migration to Azure, from on-prem to Azure?
Yeah, so digital transformation was a key priority for Chevron, and cloud is a huge enabler of that. Partnering with Microsoft, going all in on Azure is a huge support to achieve that journey. I mean, we started with some of the typical reasons to move to cloud. Speed, scalability, elasticity, et cetera. But really we had a lot of underperforming IT assets. We wanted to get more out of automation, and we wanted to start to modernize the application portfolio. And I think that's a journey that we're still on today.
That's great, thank you. Michael, you work with so many customers. How does that relate to the other things that you've seen with so many other customers you work with?
Yeah, so Scott, I'm really glad that you talked about digital transformation, because in some of the conversations that I've been having with customers and internally within the company is really about how FinOps really is about digital transformation. Microsoft is a product company. We talk a lot about the products and services that we offer, but it's not just about the technology. It's about the people and the process. And that's one of the things that makes, I think, FinOps unique from all the other different cloud management approaches that are out there and the different nuances that they bring, because we have such a big focus on the people and the process and that culture that's really needed. But one of the things that I know that we really see, looking at that technology side, that is challenging for customers is bringing all the data together. Because when you look at FinOps, one of the challenges are there's so many different tools and services that are out there that you need that are part of your FinOps journey. And really, if you're going to act on that data, you need to have all the data in one place. Right? So that's one of the big things that we're looking at is how can we help you? How can we facilitate that? You've got your cost data, you've got your usage, the prices, there's utilization information, there's the changes that are happening in the resource configuration, there's sustainability, carbon information that's out there. You need all that together so you can build the right reports that tell that whole story. And then mix that with your own organizational data to bring in allocation and things like that. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we're looking at, is try to figure out how can we better facilitate that. And then you also touched on the partnership. I want to say that's one thing that we really appreciate, because all of you know this. When it comes to FinOps doesn't get enough credibility. I don't think I need to tell anybody that. And the partnership that you've had with us has been so beneficial from the perspective of driving that awareness in other product teams, because us on the cost management team, we can go tell them how impactful it is that we can help you, not just from cost, but also usage and how that impacts everything. And the way that you're helping partner with all these different teams and tell your story helps them see how that ties into the cost story and how that comes back around to driving business value for your organization, where they can start to see that full picture. And having us both kind of attack that, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that FinOps journey that Chevron took? When did you make that change from more traditional cost management into FinOps? And what were the challenges that you faced in that journey?
Yeah, so we, when we signed our agreement with Microsoft and we went all in, and I remember kind of the sentiment at the time was, in year one was, oh my God, we got this big commitment, we got to spend, spend, spend. And in year two, the sentiment really started to change. It was like, okay, well, I think we're going to hit our commitment, no problem. Now we really need to think about, are we getting maximum value out of the cloud? We need to start optimizing. We see that, hitting a commitment isn't going to be a challenge. And that's really where the FinOps practice was born. And I have to give our leadership credit at the time. They brought FinOps as a concept into me, before I think FinOps was really even a term or started just becoming a term, had that vision and had that executive level buy-in. It was really, really critical. We were focused on an aggressive pace to adopt cloud, but while you're on an aggressive pace, I'm going to give you a shocker. We didn't think about FinOps, FinOps wasn't a part of the decisions that we were making at the time. So when we started the FinOps practice, we found we had several issues. Some examples would be, the way we had designed our Azure environment. I mean, it really was not great from a FinOps perspective. I'll give you some examples. We had this concept of having shared subscriptions, having businesses playing in the same environment. Well, that's great, but at the same time, when you start introducing FinOps, you want to try to separate and allocate and charge back the costs. That became really difficult. And so we re-architected our entire Azure environment as part of the FinOps, getting started with our FinOps program. Other things like, how do you control, this massive pace of adoption into cloud? I learned very quickly, no resource groups equals no resources equals, there's a gateway to keep folks from just kind of going crazy and doing whatever. And so we started putting automation with provisioning processes in place, really tightening up the governance and controls of getting out into Azure. We, automate all the different services that we have approved for use in Chevron. So the governance piece really, really helped. And finally, on the visibility side, right, really getting out, cost and usage data out to those that are consuming it. And we found a challenge, we were doing that with Power BI. Our company, likes to consume reporting via Power BI. So we started with Power BI. It was great for the first 2 years. But then we were constantly having to care and feed it because there was just so much data coming in. So we really had to, again, rework and say, okay, we need a better data product to manage this. And so we had to kind of solve that. So lots of challenges, but in terms of one huge success to mention as a company, we did have a industry first three-party partnership with Microsoft, Schlumberger, and Chevron. Cloud helped enable that, and it's been a huge enabler for the business and a first in the oil and gas industry. So huge success there.
Great challenges and successes. How are you measuring ROI then, now that you have gone through that journey? What are your measurements here?
Yeah, so some of the measures that we use to kind of show back our program's effectiveness. Easy one is how much dollars are we saving year over year? We look at our optimization savings rate. We are trying to move to spot computing in a big way, so we're measuring how much spot we're using, and we're also measuring the percentage of spend that's that we deem as waste, right? What are we spending that we would calculate as waste, like maybe we left something on, or maybe we've got some size big, or something like that. So those are our 4 primary measures today.
Great, thank you. Michael, similar challenges probably that you're seeing in other customers, and how are we helping customers deal with those challenges with our products and their FinOps journey?
Yeah, the interesting thing is like there's so many different approaches to cloud adoption, to cloud management, to cloud governance, and I see similar things, both companies big and small. I also see them taking different approaches, big and small. And there's a lot of different factors that come into that, and it really comes back to that culture thing, right? And this is why it's so important to understand what the culture is that you're starting with, and then visualize where the culture that you want, how you want to evolve that culture, right? One of the things that I notice is that I keep clicking this thing. One of the things that I notice is that culture really comes down to usually like one or a few key leaders within the organization. It's important to understand like how they work and their how much risk they're willing to take on and things like that, because that's going to be the thing that's going to help you get from where your culture is to where it needs to be, right? And I talked about people, process, and technology earlier. And as much as we would like to bring and give you a product that would solve all those problems, that's not the solution, right? You need people to help get you there. So you've got to partner with others within the company that have the same goals, the same passion as you do to really drive that home. And then also partnering with Microsoft, like Scott's talking about. We have people in the field that are ready to support you, and it's about knowing where you can reach out to them. And if it's not Microsoft, there's lots of partners that we have that can help you get there. So we see lots of the same types of things. It's just how you attack it. I hate to bring back from my consulting days, but the way that you do it kind of depends. It depends on you, where you're at and where you're going, and what your business needs are.
Yeah,
So.
and you talk about your leadership. So to Michael's point, culture and getting that alignment, you talk about the support you got from your leadership early on. So that's obviously critical. You also talk about tools. So I want to shift a little bit about products, tools, in terms of what are the Microsoft products that you've been using in this journey to not only migrate and be successful at your management, but also adopting FinOps?
Yeah, so we are using a lot of in-house developed tools and automation, policy governance, et cetera. We do use third-party tools, and we definitely leverage Microsoft tooling. So some of the critical tools to our processes are cost management and billing. First and foremost, we leverage Advisor. We have our data product that we've developed that leverages Azure Data Factory, where we've got pipelines that transform our billing data. We move that into either Data Lake or SQL Data Warehouse. Then for our reporting, we're leveraging Azure Analysis Services, where we build all the modeling that the reports run off of, and really that is because if we didn't do that, the user experience with the reporting would just be, it really just wouldn't be usable with the amount of data that we're presenting in some of the reports. And then finally, we're using Power BI to display the reporting data.
I'm going to drill down into cost management, because that is your product.
Yep.
So how do you see the product right now or the future roadmap supporting FinOps adoption and challenges and opportunities like Chevron just went through?
So
it's going through.
I'll focus on right now. We'll get to the future in a bit. But at Microsoft, we take I think a slightly different approach than you might see in other tools, where we understand that just because there is a product doesn't mean that everyone's going to use it. One of the things that comes up in the state of FinOps data year after year is how do we enable and empower and encourage engineers to go take action? Just because there's a tool that engineers have access to doesn't mean that they're going to go to it. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to bring the data to the people. right? We want to put the tools, the FinOps tools that they need in as close to where they're doing their job as possible to make sure that they are keeping that in mind, that it is front and center for them, right? So that's one key thing that we try to do, and there's a lot more that we want to do in that space, but that's one key principle that we have. And you will see that as we kind of evolve more, a lot more of that, because we're really focusing on how do we empower more people, right? We spend a lot of time looking at how do we empower engineers in the Azure portal, but we also know that we need to move beyond that, right? It's about how do we empower all the stakeholders throughout the organization. But we're also engaging deeply within the community. I see some of my focus brethren in the crowd here. We spend a lot of time investing in evolving focus, working with our customers, our partners, maybe our competitors, because we know that that's the right thing to do, right? Focus is a game changer, and we believe in that, and we're working really hard to be able to do that. But not just in focus, also in a lot of the other things that are coming out with respect to the framework and the guidance that's coming out. We're trying to invest as much as we can into all of this because all of this helps enable FinOps, right? And really just bringing it back to the product, like our goal is to build integrated experiences. There are a lot of different tools and services available from Microsoft and partners. We want to figure out a better way to integrate these things, which is why I think you see things like Azure Advisor is embedded inside of cost management, right? That's just one example, but we're looking at more and better ways for us to integrate these things to make it easier for you to do what you need to do.
Thank you. And absolutely, focus is a huge step forward, data standardization, all that is critical. But I want to go back to one of your points earlier on. Did you talk about rate optimization? Yep. I'm sure there's a lot of tooling that you use to manage that, but do you want to talk about your approach?
Yeah, so, with rate optimization and, FinOps kind of costs broken down and it simply is just rate times usage. First part of us kind of managing rate is the partnership with Microsoft, working with the cloud service providers, any service provider you're working with. You always want to try to negotiate the best rates possible, and you never want to hold off on making an ask, right? Oh, I need a credit, I need a better discount, etc. Never hurts to ask. Beyond that, we have a reserved instance program that we manage where we're reserving probably about 50% of our compute in Azure. We also are looking to take advantage in a big way of spot markets, and leveraging spot will definitely help drive our rate for the usage down as well. So those are some of the things we're doing to help manage rate.
And from a tooling perspective, how do you manage that? Like when you are monitoring 50% of your computer reservations or reserve instances, how do you use the tooling for that?
Yeah, so we're really leveraging the out-of-the-box tools provided by Microsoft. So I'm constantly in the Azure portal, cost management and billing, or the reservation blade, and really just watching the utilization, maintaining a healthy state at a certain level of utilization is critical to the success of our commitment-based discount program. And so we spend a lot of time in there. We spend a lot of time analyzing the recommendations that are coming from the system. And honestly, I'm leveraging those recommendations straight out of the box. So huge. It's a huge win for us to just be able to really rely on the system and the tools and the recommendations they provide. And my 3-4 years of experience hasn't led us astray, so I'm really confident in those tools.
Yeah, and in that sense, we are moving a little bit to the future. Let's talk about how things are going to evolve. And we heard about AI this morning, how important it is for the industry, what's the role of FinOps on that. I wanted to ask you about what are your priorities in that roadmap ahead of you for Chevron's journey in adopting and continue to run, maybe walk and maybe run in the FinOps adoption?
Yeah, so I mean, AI is definitely something that we're interested in. Shocker, everybody's interested in it. We're, I would say, probably crawling in that space today, but I think the opportunities are plentiful, and we'll need to be really closely watching, how that part of the business starts to adopt AI. As far as for us using it for FinOps, I really love the thought about things like, having our data product in Fabric, and, customers who may not want to consume the data via reporting that we're providing for the enterprise, they can, go into Copilot and say, hey, can you show me, spend maybe this way, slice and dice it, this or that way, and have Copilot just build a Power BI report versus coming to my team and asking for data in X or Y way. So those are some of the things that I think are going to be really exciting. Also, advisor leveraging Copilot to provide different FinOps recommendations. Really excited to see the progress with that. So those are some of the things that we're really looking forward to. And as far as our agenda for the future, it's all about building culture, FinOps culture at Chevron, kind of number one. I talked about our spot progress, which is really critical. Adopting Fabric and adopting Focus standards and data sets. Those are all on our list this year.
Yep.
Well, that's exciting. Michael, how are we going to meet these future needs and expectations with our products?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier. So we have lots of tools and services to support the different avenues and aspects of FinOps. And we'll continue to keep investing on those individual tools for the people that need them. But as you talked about, being able to empower everyone. And that's kind of the vision that we have for FinOps, is we need to democratize FinOps. It's not just about this central team that is there, because that one central team is never going to scale to support everybody in all the things that they need. So the only way to help the FinOps team scale is to empower everybody else throughout the organization. So that's really the approach that we're taking, is take all the tooling, the data from the different tools that are out there, bring that all together into a central place. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about Fabric right yet, but, but that's kind of core to how we're looking at the future of FinOps on Microsoft Cloud. And really just building this unified experience that really looks end to end at the FinOps journey. Everything in FinOps in one set of reporting that you can extend and customize, fully customize to meet your needs. Because when you look at the data that's out there, what you need is not another tool. The average organization uses 4.1 FinOps tools. Our goal isn't to give you 5.1 tools. Our goal is to give you a platform to bring those tools into one place, right? Because what you need is that synergy, that embedded, the unified experience that you can then sweep through all the things that you need to do, and that enables all of your stakeholders. Like, if leadership can get the answer without having to come ask you, that's power. If finance can get the answers that they need to understand what they need to do, if procurement can get the data that they need to go negotiate rates, that's power. And that's what we want to enable through AI and Copilot on top of Fabric, bringing all that data together without having to duplicate it and copy it and move it around, because that's also pain, right? So those are some of the things that we're kind of looking at to enable organizations. And I think the one question that really comes to mind for this is, do you have a platform that facilitates bringing together the data today? And I think a lot of us, I think that answer is no. right? Because it's not just about the cloud data. We can give you all the cloud data in this cloud system, but is that everything that you need? The truth is it's not. You need your organizational hierarchies. Actually, there's more than one organizational hierarchy. A lot of people have the people hierarchy. There's a system level organizational hierarchy. They'll have finance hierarchies, things like that. We got to bring all this stuff in. There's your application telemetry to be able to facilitate unit economics. All this needs to come together so that we can have one solution that then enables you, that gives you the core things that you need, but enables you to extend it when it doesn't meet your needs, right? So that's kind of the direction that we're taking with, again, AI as an accelerator, Copilot embedded in the Azure portal all the way through to Fabric, into Teams. Earlier, you heard Srivatsan, our VP of Engineering, talking about just this democratizing FinOps and bringing things to Slack and Teams and whatnot. And that's really just about fully democratizing that and bringing the data to the people. And that's kind of the approach that we have.
Yeah, and this morning we heard JR and in the keynote talking about the additional personas they keep adding,
Yeah.
right? The core personas of FinOps and additional ones, to your point, bringing that data, that access to all the different roles. So I want to ask you in that future, Scott, because you are obviously leading FinOps and Chevron, but there are so many people that consume it or need to act on the principles and the guidance that are defined by the FinOps team. How do you think Copilot and Fabric are going to help your team move forward with that, with more scalability, faster decisions, all that? How do you think that's going to enable the future?
Yeah, so enabling, I mean, visibility key, being able to show back, costs, quicker, in more consumable ways that, are user-friendly or user-preferred, I guess I would say. We are, being able to integrate more disparate data sources into that data and, to be able to rapidly join all that information together in a meaningful way that the business can act on, that an engineer can act on, that's really what we're trying to achieve, and I think what Michael's describing.
It's the connections.
That's the connection for sure.
Yeah. I'm looking at time, and I want to make sure we have time for the audience, but I want to ask you both final thoughts. I'm going to start with you, because I'm going to leave Scott for the last word.
Okay.
So, Michael, final thoughts or recommendations for customers that are just embarking on this journey?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, and that's about the culture. It's interesting when I've looked at what's unique about the approach that we have in FinOps relative to other things, because one of the things that you may see is that FinOps has grown, right? Within the last year, we've more explicitly added sustainability. It's always been kind of on the cursory, but now it's officially part of the framework. And there are conversations that we're having within the TAC around other things that are kind of on the periphery, and should we be pulling them in? Think questions like on-prem costs, we should, things like that. Because for you to be able to manage costs and really quantify your value and maximize your value, you need to have all that data together, right? And there's this larger picture. And the one thing that I've seen, because I was having this conversation with somebody that was driving sustainability within Microsoft, and he was telling me about some of the other working groups or organizations within Linux Foundation that are doing that. And I saw a lot of overlaps, and we were talking about this. And I was like, well, it's interesting that we're building out sustainability as part of the framework when there are other organizations that are doing that, are dedicated to that, and doing it to much, much deeper. But the one thing that is unique about what we do within FinOps is this focus on the culture, that people, the process, and the technology. And that's the thing that I think that most of these other things are missing, right? And really, the FinOps framework is a great foundation that helps us understand that cultural impact and the change necessary in that culture. And kind of to wrap this up, because I'll go on forever, I think about this, like I said, around people, process, and technology. You've got to partner with others. You can't do it yourself. There's no one person that's going to go change the culture at the company, right? You need to partner with others and work with them to define the right process, One thing that's great about the FinOps framework is it's a flexible yet structured process that you can implement in the way that works for your organization. And that's really important. So really just getting in and figuring out how you can do that within your organization, because it's different everywhere. What works for you won't work for you. What works for you won't work for them. So that's the problem that we have within FinOps is just how dynamic it needs to be within organizations. And then on the technology front, just again, making sure that you've got the right platform that's going to be able to facilitate bringing the data together that you need and doing the right reporting and alerting and everything that you need to do on top of that data. And I think those are some of the critical elements because without all of that, you won't be able to empower the people. And without empowering the people, you're never going to be able to meet your goals because you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, well, it's a problem, but it's also a blessing.
Yeah.
Because you can make it your own. And
Yes,
it's not a
absolutely.
rigid framework. Really
Absolutely.
embrace it to your culture, adapt it to you. So,
Yeah, and that's the value
yes.
that you bring in because nobody knows your organization like
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So final thoughts from
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
Scott. If you could have changed something in this journey, you would have done it differently. What would that be?
Yeah, so, having been on the journey from the start, I think one of the number one things I would have changed, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but, incorporating FinOps into our design from the start, and trying to have a certain level of governance in place before, widespread adoption, going back and trying to retag stuff or, figure out what this is doing and who owns it and who should be paying for it. So having a little bit of governance in place before we really start to leverage cloud, I think that would be my number one lesson learned and what I do differently. Besides that, our cloud journey, I think is, our FinOps journey at least, I think has been a good one. I didn't mention earlier, I'll say by just, number one, start doing FinOps. I think it's easy to get kind of bogged down in, maybe, trying to put too much process or too much governance in place. That the business is out there just using cloud. So, my recommendation is, just start doing FinOps and start leveraging the tools that you have. We did a lot of homegrown and home developed stuff initially, but that may not be, the right choice for you in your situation. So, look at the landscape, get educated with FinOps. I mean, the community has grown so much. 5 years ago, we didn't have this. And so leverage the resources that the community provides, leverage the resources that your cloud service providers are providing because they've reached a level of maturity now where it's pretty good. And, with everyone's help, it'll only make things better as we go.
Yeah, talk to people inside the company and outside the company like you were talking about. Microsoft's a big company, but I know when I talk to our FinOps teams internally, they keep telling me about, oh yeah, there's this other team that's over here that's also doing stuff. I'm like, oh, I never knew that. So find the people who are passionate within your company, and they'll help you.
Yeah, and Michael mentioned it. I won't go into it, but I find a lot of what I do today is, driving culture, engaging. You can never do enough of that. And so everything you mentioned about the partnership, driving culture, I 100% agree with.
And outside of the organization, this event is a huge community, so many great practices across so many customers in the same journey. So, and you're all here. So there's the first step to learn from the community. All right, so we're gonna click for the last slide because we have a few minutes left and want to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah,
if
how
there's
about first a round of applause for the group? I want to thank you all for sharing your experiences. I really personally, from my experience, hearing how FinOps is done at scale, especially at Chevron, is really helpful. Even if you're a small or medium-sized company, it's almost like a peek into the future because a lot of those challenges get exposed much more quickly. So thank you, Scott, for sharing that. And Michael, I just want to say your passion for FinOps I appreciate you shouting out the framework as many times as you did, someone who helped write it. But I'd like to open it up for questions. We have lots of time for questions. So the only requirement is you need to speak into the mic so that the folks who couldn't attend and we're recording it for them can at least hear your question. So does anyone have a question for the team on stage? Well, you did such a great job. Oh, we do have a good question over here. I'm going to cut across.
Hi. So you talked about sustainability. Like, can you tell us a little bit more on like what kind of data are you capturing? How is it used? How you kind of use that for goal setting? A little bit about that will be interesting. And also, what kind of product support you have in Azure today? I'd love to learn about that.
Yeah, so I mean, from a sustainability perspective, you know, our measures are mostly, you know, cost-based. You know, while we have the ability to, you know, present sustainability metrics, I mean, Microsoft can certainly talk about the metrics they provide and able to give those. We're not measuring today our optimization effectiveness via sustainability or carbon reduction footprint or whatever. That could change in the future, but most of our metrics are based on the actual cost or dollar related.
Yeah.
I can comment a little bit on that.
Yeah, go for it.
So we have a Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. It's a very comprehensive set of products that bring all that visibility. And one of the key elements there is a dashboard, comprehensive dashboard across all that. Within Azure, we have a service called Azure Carbon Optimization. It is a service in the portal that provides carbon emissions information from all the services that you're running, and all that is integrated into the broader dashboard for the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. There is a huge development recently on that, and that carbon optimization service within Azure also provides recommendations and is very visible and dynamic for customers to act on how their services are running and what are the impact on the environment that they have. Do you want to add to that?
That was perfect.
Great. Thank you.
The only thing that I was going to say is really just about using, getting your engineers to start looking at carbon in carbon optimization inside the Azure portal. And then the tools that we have with Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, that's really to empower everybody else within the organization. Your engineers could obviously also use that, but again, it goes back to that putting the tools, getting the tools closer to the people that need them, and the engineers who are making the configuration changes, that's where Azure Carbon Optimization in the portal is super helpful.
Yep. Another question?
Any other questions?
There's one back there.
Back here, sure.
There are three more. Oh, wait.
Can you just speak into the mic so that the recording can...
Oh, sure. Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys. This is an excellent presentation. And Scott, you and I have spoken in the past, and I've had a little experience at Chevron and realized it's a very divisionalized, disparate organization with a lot of decision-making out on the edges. But you've spoken mainly to using the information in a centralized capacity to make better decisions. To what extent do you use the tools like Power BI and a scorecarding capability at the edges so that people are trying to optimize their decisions, not just trying to learn FinOps on their own, but how do I manage against maybe a target number? Or, you know, we've seen in these events some of these advanced scorecards like 75 out of 100, and I want an 80 out of 100. To what extent have you guys explored some of that?
Yeah, so, you know, Chevron over the last several years has gone through, you know, digital transformation and kind of restructuring of an organization where we've really brought a lot of our IT function into kind of a centrally managed space where we're able to, you know, work directly with IT folks that are helping to support the business. And I really think it's a model that's, you know, helped and accelerated our, you know, IT function as a whole. So when I'm working with folks that are IT but in support of the business, I mean, we're doing that across all, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 of the business segments that we have. I mean, some of, you know, those areas are larger spender than others, probably spend a little more time with them than others, but we're providing our reporting out for every single one of those functions. And I know for sure that all of them are looking at it, constantly working with them to understand the opportunities, help drive down their costs, help try to meet their budget requirements, et cetera. Where we probably have, the next step maturity is really kind of converting the work that's being done into, like unit economics, where you're saying, okay, well now, we've reduced our IT spend by, X amount. That translates to, a couple cents dollar per barrel or something like that, like you've seen, in the Uber presentation earlier today. So we still have a little work to do in that area. But that's why I always tell people, we may be kind of run state, but run doesn't mean perfect. I think that's another way you could say what JR was talking about earlier. There are no runners. Run doesn't mean perfect.
We always say progress, not perfection, right?
Yeah.
There's a question up here. I'll come across and I'll come back to you, okay?
Hello. Yeah, I want to imagine that you have like loads of subscriptions across, different engineering teams and product teams. So how do you, engage with those product teams or engineers to take, optimization actions? How do you engage with them? And then to Michael, how do you push, I know the cost optimization workbook is now general reviewed. How do you push that to your customers, to start using that, that playbook gallery to be able to take actions to it?
Yeah, so we definitely do have a lot of subscriptions, even more resource groups, across the state. How do we get folks to take action? A lot of it is, through our governance. We do so much centrally. Like, you don't really have a choice with us if we're saying, hey, you need to resize a virtual machine. Now, you might have a choice in terms of when you do it. You might have a choice to put an exception and not do it at all. But if you do nothing, we just do it. And so there's a lot of kind of governance in our FinOps practice at Chevron, and that's really helped. I'll reference something our CIO told me when we were early in our journey. He says, Scott, if we're not cracking eggs in this space, we're not being aggressive enough. And so I've leveraged that several times when people have come to tell me I, broke their application, or, our limited use policy in Sandbox deleted 3 months of their work, and, but for us, there's a certain level of governance that we lean on. From there, we do want to get engineers involved in, taking actions that we're not taking from the center, because we can't do everything from the center. We built our process for enterprise scale, which means we're, 80-20. So there's still 20 out there that needs to get done, and that's where driving the culture, getting our engineers more involved in FinOps, training them as part of our standard software engineering curriculum, all comes into play.
We have another question over here.
Oh, and
But
Michael,
there was
I
a
know,
second part.
The second
to
part,
this question.
I'll be brief on it.
Okay.
So you're asking about the cost optimization workbook. The cost optimization workbook, this is something that is now available inside of Azure Advisor. And this is really just a collection of a lot of guidance that we have within the well-architected framework and things that our field has seen with working through with different customers and the things that they need to optimize their environment. We continue to evolve that, so keep the feedback coming. There are some customers that are looking at how do they take that and then customize that further, and we make that available through the FinOps Toolkit, which we have an open source collection of just different tools and guidance to help drive FinOps and automate FinOps. So really, the conversation around optimization and efficiency, I like to say, starts within Azure Advisor. But then it definitely goes beyond that, and there's more things that people want to do to be able to customize recommendations and do more. I don't want to belabor this. We're adding some new things this month to the FinOps Toolkit to even facilitate that even more, to drive more customizable recommendations so that you can then go do more within your environment. But
Yeah, my question was, it kind of alludes to the well-architected framework. So we've talked a lot today about existing enterprise and how to optimize what's out there today. I'm at Shell. I work closely with Scott. Some of the things that we're doing, though, is we're trying to get ahead of, sloppy code being deployed or do serverless. And so we've got a lot of, I just have a product question, is like, what can we use to help better educate our community? Because I loved what you said. It's not, FinOps is like 2 or 3 people. We're trying to empower and enable others, right? And so I think some people, like you said, Scott, you get kind of mature on existing architecture, but how do you get in front of it, right, from a product perspective and really educate people on that side of it?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it really comes down to, I feel like that comes down to processes within the organization, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, because typically, and I remember some early conversations with Chevron as you guys were moving in, where it's like, I vaguely recall, because I was on the outskirts of this, we're just trying to get everything in right now.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the reasons why within the 2024 updates of the FinOps framework, I'm not trying to do this, I promise.
He's getting a commission.
But within the recent updates, that's why there is a new capability for architecting for cloud, because that's how important it is. And because there's so many organizations that are like, I just got to move to the cloud. Especially through COVID, like that was a big time where people just charged ahead because the promise is there. And then they get there and they're like, well, wait a minute, where's this promise? Like, this was supposed to be the Holy Land, but I'm not there. Well, that thing takes work, right? And a lot of that comes from, I just did a lift and shift, but I'm not seeing the value. That's because you got to start moving to some of those cloud native technologies so that you can take advantage of the cloud for what the cloud is there for. And as great as IaaS is to get you into the cloud, you got to start looking at some of those cloud native technologies, and that's where architecting for the cloud is really going to come in.
And I just want to add, I know we're on time, I want to add to that is part of that processes mentality, the culture that needs to change. Yes, the shiny object is the thing that you want. Yeah. You cannot ignore your governance, your security, your landing zone. What are the guardrails that this application, that shiny object that you really want on the cloud to happen? Because as Michael says, it's there, but it falls down because it doesn't have the proper environment. And it's the culture change. So when you deploy things, you deploy high quality from all angles, and you don't have to, oh my gosh, I need to revisit this because it broke, it's not working, it's not performing, and then I need to do all the cleanup and all that. So it's the culture approach and change that needs to be brought in as the architectures are designed and brought into the cloud.
Yeah. And that's tough.
Yes.
I mean, that's really tough, right? We had this grandiose idea, hey, we got this cloud environment, it's green, we're going to keep it green. And then, business requirements come and, you do stuff that you said you weren't going to do, and all of a sudden it gets a little browner, and, and you got to go back and manage that. You can't keep kicking tech debt down the road, and that's a continuous challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Michael, Evelyn, Scott, thank you so much. Please, round of applause for everybody for the team.
Yeah,
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X 2024 content on our YouTube channel on the 2024 playlist. Support our channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and by leaving comments and questions for our speakers. We appreciate your support.